Rain fell like confession soft, relentless, impossible to ignore. In the chapel's half-light, where vows were meant to be iron and hearts as steady as stone, Clara knew that some words were spoken for the world, and others trembled with what could not be admitted. The Duke had told her it would be only duty. His voice had carried the weight of oaths, clean as steel drawn from the forge. Yet when his eyes betrayed him falling, uninvited, to her lips his syllables quavered, as though desire had tangled itself into the marrow of that vow. Clara felt it, though no one else did. The rain stitched itself across the narrow windows, binding morning into a single veil. Damp crept up from the stone steps into her shoes. Her veil clung to her cheek with the persistence of a hand that would not let go. Everything smelled faintly of beeswax and wet wool. The organ let its final dignified bars drift into the rafters, a benediction of restraint. The vows had been spoken, recorded with proper gravity. When the Duke had said duty, the word landed on the chapel stone like a coin honest, hard, incorruptible. Yet the break in his voice lingered in Clara's ribs like a secret chord only she had heard. She said nothing. That was the wisdom the world demanded of her. The rector closed the book with a clap like wings folded. Gloves shifted, handbells murmured, polite whispers offered rain as a good omen for harvests. People always found such sayings when truth might wound. Clara's hands stayed steady. She did not tremble when he led her to the velvet-draped table. They signed their names with hands that betrayed nothing. His was a study in control, letters angled to look effortless. Her name, unchanged yet heavier beneath its new title, looked like itself and not itself. The quill was chill against her fingers, and she felt its trace up her pulse as if it had stitched the promise into her veins. "Clara," he said softly, offering her the quill back. The smallest courtesy, yet his voice brushed the air as though her name cost him more than his crown ever had. "Your Grace," she returned, because names were precious things, and costly when they consumed one's past. The Duke pressed his mouth into a line. The rector murmured to her about providence and strength. She smiled, the kind of smile she had taught children to make when needles pricked or pens tore paper or small heartbreaks swelled their eyes. Smiles could be bridges. They could also be shields. Outside, the yard shone slick as polished glass. Puddles trembled like nerves under the horses' hooves. The Duke's carriage waited, black and gleaming, his footman raising an umbrella against the rain. Their steps stretched long under the weight of 1,000 eyes. The ring against Clara's glove was warm, more real than the stone chapel she left behind. Inside, the air smelled of leather, polish, and diligence. Windows turned the city into blurred watercolor chimneys like waiting centuries. A scarlet shawl, bright as a wound. A boy flapping his damp newspaper at beasts of iron and wood. Clara sat opposite him, near enough to breathe in the starch of his linen, far enough to preserve the line that existed between them, unnamed but understood. "Thank you," she said. Gratitude needed a place to live. She would not insult either of them by pretending she did not know the weight of what he had done. For what? His tone was ironclad. The carriage rocked. Their knees almost touched. Almost was a weather of its own. For protection. The word sat bitter on her tongue, but she was old enough to swallow what did not taste kind. His gaze darted again, unguarded, to her mouth. "It was necessary. Kindness is rarely necessary," she said, and nodded once, as if to seal the matter. The jolt of the carriage sent her hand sliding across the seat. His hand closed on her wrist before thought could stop it, warm through her glove, precise and human. He released her instantly, but the absence glowed like an ember. "Do you have a book?" he asked at last, like a guest filling the silence of a rainy house party. "In my reticule. The light is poor." "Yes, there." Words folded shut like paper. The world beyond the window blurred into rain and lamplight. Clara thought of laundry water and ink, of the violet pressed in her poetry book at home, the one she had not dared bring. She missed it suddenly, as if a fragile flower could tether her more firmly than rings or vows. "You dislike the damp," he said. "I was born to it." She turned her gaze outward, the Tours folding cloth, a maid balancing a pie with priestly care. "You will not be troubled here. I am not afraid of trouble." A smile ghosted her lips, sharp as a spark. For a breath he looked younger. Startled by the sound of her defiance, the carriage slowed. Wessex House rose pale and solemn, its columns beaded with rain. A boy wiped the steps with soldierly gravity. Iron lions crouched along the balustrade. Windows shone like eyes. He stepped out first, offering his hand. She took it, palm damp, palm warm. It was not sentiment to say she entered a new life. It was simply direction. The hall breathed wealth and scrutiny. Black and white marble glimmered where servants erased water faster than it fell. Mirrors doubled every gesture, every fault. Beeswax sweetened the air. Coal warmed it. At the end stood the dowager, upright as a clock that marked not hours but generations. Her face arranged itself into something that resembled approval at least, from a distance. "Your Grace," Clara said, curtsying with the precise grace she had taught others, but never confessed she practiced in. "Private. Clara," the dowager intoned, weighing the name like grain. "We shall receive the household." So they did. The housekeeper, hands exact as scales. The butler, spine a ruler, eyes precise as keys. The steward with numbers marching behind his eyes. The scullery maid, schooled into saving her smiles. Each name Clara marked as if memorizing a poem. Names were respect. Names were power. The Duke stood silent, steadying her rhythm, though never once interfering. In an anteroom, the nieces appeared, two identical faces parted by ribbons they resented. Their blinking reminded Clara of children seeing bright sun for the first time. "We shall have lessons," she said warmly, because false warmth tasted sour, and children always knew. "Not today," one whispered, grave as prophecy. Tea followed, the dowager's voice arranging cups and precedents with the same authority as she had once ordered famine rations. The green drawing-room offered gentler air, softened by years of voices. Portraits followed them down corridors, women too adored by paint, men too weary of war. "Do you enjoy verses?" the dowager asked, pouring tea as one who had measured scarcity. "When they have room to breathe," Clara replied. The dowager's nod was minute, almost a trick of light. "There will be no coddling." "I expect none." Then they understood each other, in a way that might have seemed like dislike to strangers. On the return, the Duke paused before a canvas, a woman's hand on an open book, a pressed flower half hidden, as if about to be closed forever. "You like that one," Clara said. "It is accurate." "To what?" "To the moment before a thing becomes permanent." He moved on before she could answer. Afternoon pressed on like a creature with its own will. Servants performed rituals as old as stone. Cards arrived sharp from the knife. Some congratulated with sincerity, others with duty. The Duke reacted to none. Dinner, not supper, as decreed by a dowager 3 generations past. Lessons in precedence disguised as conversation. The Duke spoke logistics. His mother measured reputations. Clara listened, absorbed, endured. Beneath the trays and ledgers, heat lingered like a banked coal. She felt him note her step at each threshold, her breath on porcelain, her presence in her room. Twice she caught his eyes straying to her mouth. Twice he looked away. When the house settled half a degree toward privacy, he led her to the study. The room carried all 4 seasons at once: autumn leather, winter fire, spring green lamps, summer warmth sunk into wood. "This will be your desk," he said, indicating a smaller table near the window. His tone neither forbade nor entreated. It offered, "Thank you." She did not sit. Not yet. The dowager entered, unyielding, tireless. "Word has gone to those who must be told. Some ladies expect your call tomorrow. You will receive them with modesty and dignity. Few words." "No confidences. No confidences," Clara repeated, aware of the irony. "Wear the gray. With the lace that reveals your taste." "Mother," the Duke said, quiet but edged. It was both plea and boundary. The dowager inclined her head, a movement that felt almost like affection. "I withdraw." Her hand lingered on the chair back, a ghost of tenderness, before she left. Rain pressed harder at the panes. The house sighed as though it had exhaled its years. Somewhere a pipe ticked in the walls. A knock. The butler entered, bearing a silver tray as reverently as if it were a crown. Upon it lay a bundle of calling cards tied with twine. Ordinary things. Ordinary, and therefore ominous. Atop them, slightly askew, lay one card more worn than the other's ink faded, corners softened by years of being carried. Clara's eyes caught the name, and her breath stilled. The Duke saw it too. His control faltered not in his face, but in the way his hand lingered a fraction too long above the tray before he took the card. It was then Clara understood. Duty was the vow, but desire, memory, and all that could undo them, both were waiting quiet as rain, just beyond the edges of order, and nearly was its own weather.